This interview was made possible by the Grove Entertainment Complex Comedy Club and Goat Lab Brewery. Welcome to the NWA XCHANGE podcast. Today, we're sitting down with Sarah Capp, who's running for Arkansas Court of Appeal. We'll dive into her background, judicial philosophy, and vision for the court. Let's get started.
Yes, so we're here today with Sarah Capp.
Yes.
Sarah, you're running for what was the position again? You're at what?
For Court of Appeals.
Okay. So right now in the Court of Appeals, how many? There's a total of 12 judges?
That's correct.
And one senior judge? Is that?
Yes. The Supreme Court Justice appoints someone that is over administratively the rest of the Court of Appeals.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Sure. I'm currently a judge. I'm a district court judge. I'm in my second term. And so I was elected in that position. And then previous to that, I served in the House of Representatives for 2 terms. And then prior to that, I was a small town attorney where I did a little bit of everything, practiced in all areas of the law. I was a city attorney. I was also, the normal divorce attorney, custody actions, guardianships, things of that nature. I did public defending work for 15 years. I spent a decade in juvenile court. And then I also represented children in DHS proceedings. I represented parents in DHS proceedings. So I practiced in all areas of the law in my private practice.
Okay. So with the Judge of Appeals, you're hitting civil, criminal, what else?
Administrative workforce. There's a lot of workforce issues that are appealed, administrative issues as well.
Okay.
So statistically, I think there's about 35% of the cases that are criminal in nature, while everything else is all the other areas of the law that gets appealed.
Okay. So how many cases do you guys try? How many does your group try in a day, a week, a month, a year?
As far as the Court of Appeals is concerned?
Yes.
Well, it depends on how many cases are appealed in that particular year.
Right.
And that would fluctuate.
But on average, what would it, if you had a number to...
I have, with my belongings here today, I have the numbers for 2024. I can pull that.
Are you saying hundreds or thousands?
Less than what I'm doing now. I can tell you that.
Okay.
I think it's around 1,200, but I can look to tell you for sure.
Okay, no, I just curious. Okay, appreciate it.
Hey, I was curious. You mentioned that you kind of done a lot of different areas of law, and I'm just curious and let the viewers know, what was your favorite area of law to practice?
The favorite area of the law was also the one that was the most gut-wrenching, that spent the most time, and that's when I helped families that were in crisis and that came to me that needed help with emergency situations. When somebody, one case that sticks out to me is that I had a grandparent, both of grandparents, whose daughter was killed by her husband. It was a domestic violence situation. And they were out of state, and so they needed emergency custody of their grandchildren. And so they came to me and asked for an emergency order to get custody of those kids. And so as an attorney, when you advocate for people, you have to also have a good bedside manner, which is important in a judicial situation as well, that you have to navigate people's feelings and help them through that process. And then also, be a strong advocate for them in the courtroom. So situations like that in my legal career, I helped people at low points in their lives and tried to provide them with legal recourse that gave them peace, so to speak. So I've done a lot of that in my career where I've helped people that have been in crisis and got them the solutions they needed in a court of law.
Can you tell us a little bit about the Smart Justice District Court Initiative? I know that's near and dear to your heart.
Yes, it is. So the Smart Justice Initiative was started in my courtroom at the beginning of this year, but I started it in a way without all the resources first time I took the bench. And my perspective is what caused me to want to think outside the box, and I'll get to that in a few minutes. But essentially what we do is we provide individuals with the tools that they need to keep them out of the court system. So whether that's transportation issues, if they need drug or alcohol counseling, housing, employment, all the things that just drag people down and they can't seem to, they're treading water and they can't really seem to get on the right path. We try to pair them with services or people to help them in their life. And it's had some great statistical evidence that we're keeping them out of court, getting them on the right path where they are productive citizens. And so it's been very rewarding what I've been able to do in my courtroom.
Do you see the recidivism rate lower in Arkansas in comparison to a national average with that program?
Recidivism rate is horrible in Arkansas.
In comparison to national levels, a higher?
It's higher.
Okay.
Yes. We, as a state, are missing the boat on what we need to do. I think that there is a trend right now, and places like Restore Hope that have really gone above and beyond to try to get people on the right track are now involved in our courtrooms.
That's the nonprofit that's been working.
Yes, the nonprofit. But Arkansas is facing some real challenges. I mean, I think that's why our jails are overcrowded and our prisons are full, because we haven't taken the right approach to try to stop those low-level offenders from reoffending and escalating to felonies.
You want to get into jail?
Yeah. So you mentioned jail overcrowding in the prison population here in Arkansas, but from some of our perspectives that aren't, we're not attorneys and we don't have a legal career, but from the outside looking in, it seems like sometimes there's a lot of violent offenders that should have been behind bars, but they're out in the general public. And we just saw recently, earlier this year, there was a case in Bentonville where a alleged career criminal was in a road rage incident, and that person ultimately lost her life over this. And then several years ago, we were talking earlier about the Pea Ridge police officer who was killed by some career criminals or alleged career criminals. So are those people out in the population a threat to the public because of the jail overcrowding?
I don't know. I think that would be an individual fact and circumstance determination. But I can tell you that there are absolutely people that have to be incarcerated for the safety of others, without a doubt. But where I feel like Arkansas is failing is that the people that can be saved, especially with the issues with drugs and violence, to where we're not interceding, to where we can make a difference at an early stage, I think that's the problem right now. That with the individuals that are a threat to our population and our communities, they absolutely need to be incarcerated long term. So I completely agree with that principle. I just see from the boots on the ground perspective of what we're missing.
So, question for you: in Benton County, we all know it's overcapacity. It's been approved for an expansion right now. What can we do to alleviate that? Our second question is: we spend, I think it's between $40,000 and $50,000 for people who are incarcerated right now, and of that, I think it was $7,500 that's just healthcare costs. Mm-hmm. What, in your mind, what can we do to reduce that?
I'm not familiar with what your court system is currently doing. So the first thing I would ask is, you have a drug court, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So drug court is very essential in trying to stop people when they're already at that felony level. And so if you don't have drug court, that would have been my first concern, to try to stop people from the reoffending, getting them on the right track when they've already escalated to that felony level. But my next question would be, what are you doing in your lower courts, which is where I'm currently serving, because you want to stop people from escalating to those felonies. There is a lot of bleed over to where you have people that have some felonies already in district court misdemeanor matters. But what I see is that they start out in district court, low level offenses, minor possession charges, something of that nature. They always have driving on suspended license violations, and they just are desperate because they've got thousands of dollars in fines and costs. And so if you can intercede to try to pair people with services and give them hope, what I have seen is that they become productive citizens. They're employed, doing well. It just helps the family unit with, their children that are in the home as well. And so it provides stability. So I would ask, what are you doing in your lower courts to try to prevent recidivism and to keep people from escalating to that circuit court level.
Yeah, and I know in most cases, and I'm sure you're aware of this too, Travis, is we have cities that are doing catch and release right now because they realize that the county jails and the court system's tied up.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, they can't do anything right now. So I think it's more important to find another outlet for these folks. I mean, I understand there's going to be a certain percentage that you can't remediate, right?
Right.
But we can't continue to do what we're doing and dumping more money into a jail and expansion and more taxes and everything else that goes along with that. I understand we have growth, but it's hard for me to wrap my head around the fact that a city will arrest someone for a situation where they really should be prosecuted but aren't.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate. And the police make that call whether or not to cite somebody or take them to be incarcerated. And it's frustrating from a judicial standpoint. I can tell you this, that the folks that need to be sitting in jail and I remain them into custody and the jail lets them loose. So that's frustrating. So, I mean, we've got a lot of issues that we're going to have to solve, but I really think it begins at the lower courts. And what are we doing to pair people with services, trying to stop people from escalating their behaviors? The drug issue almost feels insurmountable. And so we have got to do something to stop people. And it's not just a low income situation.
Okay. Since you mentioned, the drugs and alcohol and probably mental health plays into it as well.
Yes, absolutely.
And it was interesting that you mentioned some of these low level offenders. You mentioned they always have a suspended license, so they get pulled over, and so it seems to me they kind of get caught in this system where it's really hard for them to get out. And then just the more times that they become arrested and the more court appearances they have to have, the harder it is for them to get a job and to keep gainful employment. So what are some of the things that you've seen work in your court that's helping these individuals?
Yes, thank you for that question. It takes more time in court, but I've seen that it works because everyone that seems to be the repeat offenders, the frequent flyers that we sometimes call them, are there because they're driving on a suspended license. So what I have done and implemented in my court is that I have my court clerk have AIRS pulled up, which is the state system, and then they can pull it up online to see why that person's driver's license is suspended, who has a hold, what court system has a hold on their license, and how much they owe in reinstatement fees. So I tell everyone once they come in front of me that if you are here on a suspended driver's license and it's in my court, ask me about that. And I will, 1, I'll lift the hold. And then 2, in order for your license to be valid, you have to pay the reinstatement fee to the state of Arkansas. So there's 2 things that have to happen. The court has to lift the hold and you have to pay the reinstatement fee to the state. Well, oftentimes it's not just my court that have the suspended license hold on them. It's courts all across the state. And so I take the time to look it up and I tell them while they're in front of me what court system has the hold, direct them to that court, tell them to get square with that court system, and I tell them how much they have in reinstatement fees. I've had people in front of me that owe as much as $3,000, $4,000 in reinstatement fees, and it's $100 per violation if it's a failure to appear warrant. Oh, wow. So you can imagine how much court involvement it takes before you have that much in reinstatement fees. And so I tell them, this is how much you owe. You can make payments to driver control to get that under control. I'm going to do what I can to help you. From here, it's you. And you're going to have to, get your driver's license valid before you're operating a vehicle on our roadways.
That's interesting. Could you educate us on reasonings of why these people are getting their driver's license suspended?
Well, if you fail to appear in court and you get a warrant, and we have a horrible rate of people failing to appear in courts across the state of Arkansas. So your license is suspended. Okay. So that seems to be the only tool that causes people to come back to the court and want to take care of their issues, unfortunately. And so once that warrant is issued and 30 days goes by, they have 30 days to contact the court system and provide an explanation of why they missed court. If they don't do that in 30 days, your driver's license is suspended. And so then they get pulled over for speeding or, what happened, whatever reason it may be,
Right.
an accident, whatever causes law enforcement to find them. And then they'll get taken to jail for having an active warrant. And so every time that your license is suspended, it's due to a failure to appear. Your license could be suspended due to driving while intoxicated, and you've got a lot of reinstatement fees as it pertains to that. But the majority of what I see is due to FTA warrants.
Interesting.
What do you say to people that feel disenfranchised about the system? We see activist judges out there. We see people that are going outside the Constitution. And people feel like they don't have a voice anymore. What do we need to do to bring them back into the fold and enforce that?
Enforce.
There's folks that are operating at a level outside the purview at a court, so they're taking it into a political and not a judicial.
Yeah, and that's
situation.
unfortunate. Thank you for that question. So we've got 3 branches of government, right?
Right.
And we need to stay in our lane. And we don't need judges that are activists on the bench. I mean, I don't think politics belongs in the courtroom. I think the courtroom is a place for the truth, accountability, and getting things right. And as far as giving people hope that that's what it's supposed to be, I think it takes electing good people in office, because we need to remember that in the state of Arkansas, you get to elect the judges that sit on the bench. And the Bill of Rights doesn't protect itself. Our courts do. And people get to elect the judges that make those decisions. And so what I have tried to do in running this race is just remind people of how important judicial elections are and how blessed we are that we get to elect the judges that make those decisions.
That leads me to my next question. Tell us about how you became a judge where you're at currently, where you currently sit.
Okay. I previously, as I told you, was elected to the House, and I served 2 different terms. And then I was a small town attorney, where I did a little bit of everything, and
Sure.
had a public defender contract where I was a part-time public defender, was a city attorney, handled all of those matters in my private practice.
That was in Ozark?
Yes,
Okay.
in Ozark. And, I practiced in multiple counties, but
Right.
my law firm was located in Ozark. And we were transitioning to a state court in 2021. And now every district court is a state court, but it was going to be a very important transformation for our district court system. And there were 3 people that had already announced that they were running for district court judge. I was in my second term. I didn't draw an opponent my second term in office, and I knew I was the better person for the job. So I jumped in, put my name on the line, and I won outright in a 4-person race because I wanted to be the individual responsible for our transition to a state court, implement the types of initiatives that I've already talked about, and do those things that I think that court system needed.
That's pretty impressive to win outright in a 4-person race. If there's more than 2 people, it's challenging to win
Right.
outright and avoid a runoff. So I think that's a good accolade that you had mentioned.
Are you a strong supporter of teacher pay increases? What are your thoughts about that? I mean, as far as teachers?
Well, I'm married to one. So.
Okay. I know.
My husband has been, he's in his 23rd year of teaching and coaching. He's a football coach as well.
Okay.
And so, teachers are near and dear to my heart, obviously. As far as any type of legal questions about teacher pay, I don't think I should answer that. But I can tell you that I think that we need to invest in the people that are shaping the minds of our young folks, because they're going to be running our governments one day. And we need to support the individuals that sacrifice for them.
Great.
If you had to say that you had one area of law that's been predominantly the majority of what you spent your career on, could you say what that is? Or have you had just such a wide array of law experience that you can't really narrow it down?
Well, I think that I have a good perspective of all areas of the law based on everything that I've done. I started out working in a title company right out of law school where I handled real estate transactions and then worked my way through, escalating to the divorce and custody proceedings, the domestic relations work. I've done probate matters. So I've handled all of those things, but I would say that predominantly I've represented indigent people and the most vulnerable populations in our state. And I've advocated for their rights to make certain that they had a voice in the courtroom. And, the kids, representing kids in situations to where, they have charges against them. I represented the parents who the state had taken their children away from them. So in my public defender capacity, I represented individuals that were charged with crimes. And, I navigated those waters and made sure that their constitutional rights were, upheld. So I feel like ultimately I have again represented the most vulnerable populations in our state.
Yeah, that's near and dear to my heart. I'm currently working on legislation in Bella Vista to help fund the Children and Family Advocacy Center.
Yes.
They had some funding issues, so I'm trying to propose legislation where we can appropriate some funds to them and help them out. So totally off topic, but it's just near and dear to my heart.
I'm so glad to hear that because those centers play a part in a courtroom. The questioning of the children and what happens in court cases.
Yes.
So it's essential that we have those services and they stay funded.
Absolutely.
What separates you from Brandon Carter? What's the main difference that you feel that is the difference between you and him?
And I want to say that I have tremendous respect for Mr. Carter. And I know that he has spent his entire career as a prosecutor. And we absolutely need individuals like him in the courtroom advocating for the state. I know he spent the bulk of his career as a federal prosecutor. And so thank goodness for the work that he has done at that federal level. The difference between the two of us is perspective, and that I have handled all of the matters that the Court of Appeals will be making decisions on. And my perspective is not one-sided. And I've also made the decisions in the House of Representatives with making the law as well. And there was a new change that happened this past legislative session to where constitutional issues will now bypass Pulaski County and will go straight to the Court of Appeals. So not only am I an attorney that has helped make the laws, I understand the impact of them and how they affect our communities. And the Court of Appeals will be the court that will be making the decisions on whether or not those laws are unconstitutional.
You were appointed to that state representative position by Asa Hutchinson, is that right?
No, that's incorrect.
Oh, okay.
I was appointed to the Supreme Court by Governor Hutchinson. So I'm the only candidate in this race.
Was there a research guy? Oh, that's me. I'm sorry.
Okay. So I'm the only candidate in this race that has previous appellate experience serving on a court by making a decision at the appellate level, which is the Arkansas Supreme Court.
Right.
In the House of Representatives, there was a special election because there was a vacancy in office. And I can say that I was elected in a tri-county convention within 150 days. And that was between Madison County, Crawford County, and Franklin County. And I won in that election and then served that term in office. And then my second term, I'd like to say that I did such a great job that nobody ran against me. And then my second term in office, I was unopposed.
So is there a judge or a justice that you admire or look up to? And if so, can you tell us why?
As far as Supreme Court justices, I would, from the aspect of me being a woman. I was the first woman elected in my judicial district as a judge. And so, I mean, I admire Justice Scalia's fiery opinions and, things of that nature. But I would say Sandra Day O'Connor, I think that she was pragmatic in her decisions. She was a trailblazer for women. She was appointed by President Reagan in 1981, I believe. And what she did outside of her judicial roles as far as promoting civic engagement and educating the public, I mean, she used her role as a Supreme Court justice to educate other folks, empower people to get involved, and that democracy begins with the individual. And so I have great respect for anyone that, one, does their job well, and then two, uses their gifts and their accolades to help others. And so I have tremendous respect for her, what she did in the legal community as the first woman Supreme Court justice.
Very good. So, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate the time that you took to speak with us. Would you tell our listeners where they can find more information about you if they want to help your campaign or if they just want to reach out? What's the best way to do that?
Okay, sure. So I have a wonderful website. It is judgecapp.com. Anything that you've ever wanted to know about me is on that website, so please look that up. I have a Facebook page as well. It is Judge Sarah Capp, and the Instagram page that is Judge Sarah Capp.
Awesome. Is there any closing remarks that you want to tell the listeners?
I would like people to know that I grew up in a jail. So I don't think that there's many judges in the state of Arkansas that can say that. So I would like to tell that story if you're okay with that.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So I grew up in rural Kentucky, literally inside the county jail. My great-grandfather, my dad, and my grandparents were all elected jailers in Kentucky. And the sheriff was responsible for everything that happened outside of the jail, while the jailers were responsible for everything inside the jail walls. So my early formative years were spent with the sounds and the routines of jail life. And it wasn't unusual for my family to have a shared meal with an inmate that was deemed trusted enough for us to be around. And so that really impacted me. I learned some hard truths. I learned up close and personal that there are absolutely people that have to be incarcerated for the safety of others. That I also learned that there were men and women that, had they been given the right kind of help, may have stayed out of trouble. And I'm talking about family counseling, parenting classes, drug and alcohol, help, things for people to get back on their feet and to stay there. And so those lessons I took with me, and they inspired me to go to law school and to later run for the Arkansas legislature. And then, later as a sitting judge. And then I've implemented, programs and initiatives in my court based on the perspective that I've seen in my lifetime. And so I think so much of what we do is about perspective and what we understand. And so I am thankful for the perspective that I've had as a child. I'm thankful for my legal career and that I have represented a wide array of different individuals and helped them navigate, the legal world. And so I feel like I have the right perspective and the attributes in the career to serve on the Arkansas Court of Appeals. And so the election will be on March the 3rd, 2026, and I would appreciate you casting your vote for me.